New images have emerged from Burma amid stories of continued arrests. There are reports that 8 truckloads of prisoners were hauled out of downtown Rangoon, Burma's biggest city. There's no word on where the prisoners were being taken. The United Nations Special Envoy is now drafting a report on his talks with Burma's ruling generals and democracy leader Aung San Suu Kyi.
These images, just 2 days old, confirm the stories of brutality that have been leaking out of Burma. The junta has reportedly arrested more people in pre-dawn raids. Rangoon residents say they're being stopped on the street and pulled out of buses by security forces. Those with MP3 players, recorders and cameras, especially young people, are being singled out. The crackdown continued despite faint signs of progress by the UN envoy Ibrahim Gambari. After meeting both General Tan Shui and pro-democracy leader Aung San Suu Kyi yesterday, he's now in Singapore where he's been briefing the Prime Minister. Lee Hsien Loong says he's encouraged by the cooperation of the Burmese government. But whether Mr Gambari has made progress is still not known. It won't be until he briefs the UN Secretary-General later this week. But the majority of Burmese people are not holding out much hope.
The only way to solve out this question is through dialogue between Aung San Suu Kyi and the Senior General Tan Shui, because he is the man who shot the call.
The UN Human Rights Council has passed a resolution condemning the junta's violent repression. The Special Rapporteur on Burma, who's been denied access to the country since 2003, said it was vital the junta allow him to visit.
I am shocked and saddened by the growing number of reported deaths and serious injuries suffered by protesters, including monks and bystanders in Yangon, Mandalay, and other major cities in Myanmar.
But despite the crescendo of international outrage, reports of arrest and raids continue. Em Hannigan, World News Australia.
Desperate efforts are being made to trace an unknown number of protesters missing in Burma since the military crackdown began. Raids by pro-government gangs on the homes of dissident monks have continued, and international calls for restraint appear to have been ignored. The BBC's Andrew Harding has been trying to trace some of the people he met in Burma just before the protests began.
A Burmese protester is hauled away by the police. How many thousands of monks and civilians have now disappeared like this? These are some of the missing, all facing a grim future in a country where torture in detention is routine. Last month in Rangoon, I met some of the activists who've now vanished. We're not sure if his house is under surveillance, but so far so good. 70-year-old U Win Nang told me he feared a bloodbath was coming.
If the government would not compromise, then it's coming for sure.
He was proved right, and last week the police came to take him away in the middle of the night. His wife Sansan has not heard from him since. I've just left Burma and I'm not allowed back in, but I'm trying to find out what's happened to U Win Nang and his colleagues, and I've just got hold of a friend of his in Rangoon, an activist who spent a decade in prison himself. You can assume, can you, from your experience, that many of them will be beaten and tortured?
Yes, I think so. I was blindfolded all the time, and I was interrogated round the clock. Yeah. Sleep deprivation. I think they worked in shifts, and they would interrogate you day and night. Sort of wears you down.
All your friends that are in detention, do you think you'll see them again?
It'll be quite some time, I think. Quite some time. This is where, international pressure is very much needed now. And it has to happen now, not next week or next month,
These exclusive pictures show one of the makeshift prison camps now being used to house the protesters. It's a school building near Rangoon's notorious insane jail. Many monks are also being held at this sports centre.
It's frightening to even think of what the fate of those monks are.
And what do you know of conditions in Burmese jails or wherever these people are being kept?
Grim. Very, very grim.
But the crackdown has not broken the resolve of activists like Nila Tain. Last month in Rangoon, she told me how she'd abandoned her baby daughter to go into hiding. Today she's still on the run.
Neela, when do you think you will be able to see your daughter again?
I don't know, she said. We'll have to make more sacrifices. But I hope when we finally win, all our families will be reunited. For now, though, Burma's jails are full of peaceful protesters, and no one knows when they or their country